Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Living in the West. This is a series of episodes where we look into the lives of the Muslim minorities in the West. Not really their lives, but rather trying to provide some ideas for them on a strategy, a vision. And when we talk about a strategy, on a vision, we use them together. We use them as an aim, where they need to go, a direction for this group of Muslims. I have with me Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad from the Muslim Research and Development Foundation in London. Sheikh, Jazakallah khair for returning to us here. We spoke before about this vision for this Muslim minority. We also spoke about how for them to take hold of this vision. We then started breaking this down, what it was, and you explained to us that really this is Tawheed, Ibadah in its full holistic view. Something we implement on a personal level, on a communal level. We started speaking about the personal level in the last episode. I just need some more explanation on this. We want to expound it a bit more. Personal level, you spoke about the person implementing Islam, Tawheed, not being oppressed, being able to go and, for example, say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and implement this. What other levels do we have on a personal level, Shaykh?
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So in the last episode we spoke about the first priority, which is the center of our identity, the principle of Tawheed. And we spoke about it in two levels, you can say. The individual level and his family. This is the second level. All can be counted as one level. And we gave some examples of that. Now this is in terms of Tawheed. Now there are some other priorities. It doesn't mean that Tawheed in this technical meaning is the only thing that the person should be concerned
But this is the highest priority.
This is the highest priority.
Okay, so now we're coming to other priorities.
To other priorities.
Okay.
And these priorities can be taken from the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal. When the Prophet ﷺ, the well-known hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ sent him to Yemen,
yes,
to teach people Islam. He told them, لِيَكُنْ أَوَّلَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ عِبَادَةُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ عِبَادَةُ Allah. The first thing that you call them to do is عِبَادَةُ
It's the worship of Allah.
To worship Allah Jalla wa Ala. Then he said, فَإِنْ عَرَفُوا اللَّهَ in one riwayah, in another riwayah, فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوا لِذَلِكَ means if they accepted that, accepted the very principle of Tawheed, then command him, tell him that Allah Jalla wa Ala commanded them to establish 5 daily prayers. So there is a kind of priority. And of course you cannot jump into Salah and you cannot take care of your Salah while the main issue, which is the monotheism, the principle of Tawheed, is distorted or has so many deficiencies. Now on this level, which is Salah, it is a must that the person guards his Salah and establishes his Salah. The Salah is the pillar of Islam. رأس الإسلام رأس الأمر الإسلام وعموده الصلاة. It is the main pillar of Islam.
It's the head of these pillars.
Yeah. And as you know, the Salah, as per hadith Jabir in السنن, العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة فمن تركها فقد كفر. بين المرء وبين الكفر الصلاة. The main criteria between a Muslim and a Kafir is a Salah. The covenant between us and them is a Salah.
Subhanallah.
Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said that we never counted an action as kufr except a Salah.
Somebody abandoning
an action, to be considered as kufr as abandoning salah. And no need to elaborate on this more. Now, the person in the West, we need to make sure that individuals in the West are taking care of this important pillar after taking care of Tawheed. And I did mention, I don't remember whether I mentioned or I haven't mentioned the story that Sheikh Ja'far Idris told me once, that in one of the Russian countries,
the person used to hide there.
Yes, he met some people who used to use a piece of cotton to prostrate on in order to hide any or to avoid having any signal on their foreheads, not to be distinguished as Muslims, to that level. Now, we know that in the West, alhamdulillah, normally we don't have this situation. I'm not aware of all countries, of all cities, all situations, but generally speaking, this is not the situation. However, there are some other practical questions that so many people do ask about as-salah. Some people say that, yes, we work for a company that does not allow us to pray whatsoever. This is a serious matter.
Yes.
Then, generally speaking, again, brothers and sisters, we are giving general ideas. We are not giving specific fatwas for each individual. And each individual who is facing a specific situation, he needs to a scholar in order to ask him about his situation.
He needs to go to a scholar from his own country who knows the situation to ask them this.
Exactly, yeah. But generally speaking, if your work does not allow you to pray at all, then you should not work. You should not join that work.
Because this is one of the major priorities for a Muslim while living in the West.
Exactly. And this is, again, we mentioned that Tawheed is in the center of someone's identity. This is maybe just in the little bigger center or circle in the center of someone's identity. Salah. This is something. Some other people say that in terms of children, that they cannot establish salah in their schools.
That's right.
Especially sometimes when it is winter time and they have to pray dhuhr. If they don't pray dhuhr during the education or during the school timing, then they will miss dhuhr and they will miss asr, and maybe it is about to be maghrib time, so they missed dhuhr. Then we tell them, no, you have to take all means to make sure that your children pray at school. And there are many, many ways, legal ways, in order to make sure that your children do pray at school. First of all, parents. Unfortunately, many parents are ignorant and negligent, because they don't go to the school and talk to the school, to their children's schools, telling them that we are Muslims and we want facilities for our children to establish their prayers.
So this is a personal problem. They themselves don't know what's right, so how are they going to give this to their children?
Exactly. And then, unfortunately, after some time, their children, once they are raised up on this scheme of tarbiyah, of religious education, they become very ignorant of their religion, towards their religion, and they don't practice their religion, and then the parents are complaining, well, our children are off the religion, and they don't pray at all, and they are lost, and maybe many parents are talking about their daughters being married to non-Muslim men, etc., etc. So this is a big problem. Why? Because they have not taken care of them to start with. So this is in terms of salah. Take another example, another practical example. Fasting.
This is a major problem for, especially in the West now, we're finding, especially with the times and being able to break your fast and come together for fasting.
No, not only that. We are talking about the obligation of fasting, the main issue of fasting, the main obligation, which is to fast in the beginning. Now, some people do work in some companies which the nature of that work, not the company, because no one forces you to eat or to drink. But the nature of that work does not allow you to fast. So we tell people, if that is the real situation, then you need to either take a holiday during the whole month of Ramadan for you to be able to fast, or just leave that job. You don't need to sacrifice fasting, that pillar, because of your job. And you know that we will be, within a few years, we will be fasting in August, during August and during July and June, and even May, which is very, very long. You know, in May and June, the sun sets at 9:24, for example, in London. And the beginning of fasting may be at 2 o'clock. Some people say even at 1:15 or
so
1:16.
18, 19 hour day.
You are talking about 19 and a half hours a day. So if you really can't fast because of the nature of your job, and because this is not a Muslim country, they may not understand your situation, then we tell you clearly that if you have no other option, just leave that job. Now, as we said again, we are giving a very general statement or ruling. Now, some people may have certain specific situations. They need to refer to their local scholars who understand the situation. Okay. So this is another example of, in terms of the second level of priority.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. This is a good opportunity for us to take a break. We'll return, inshallah, in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ark of Noah.
We're going to be mentioning the significance of the Ark of Noah.
Knowledge is the essence of everything. Once you get the knowledge, then it generates the desire and the motivation, and then it brings about the action.
And we're going to be discussing the state of the Ummah and the division which unfortunately has appeared in it, and the methodology of trying to arrive at the right path.
Your system of knowledge or your system of motivation are hit by any of these threats, you will definitely go astray and you will be suffering from a disease in the heart.
We're also going to be discussing what Allah wants from us.
How can we make that? Allah gave us the revelation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing first and foremost the companions. If they believe in what you have believed in, then they are guided. So the real guidance is what the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were upon.
Join Sheikh Mu'tasim in the program Ark of Noah and discover the answers to these questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Living Islam in the West. Sheikh, in the part we just left now, we were speaking about the prioritization for person on an individual level. Now we spoke about, for example, implementation of Tawheed, Ibadah on a total level. Then we spoke about implementation, the next priority, just slightly down, something for him to be very, very concerned with. His 5 pillars, and we spoke about fasting and his salah, safeguarding these elements. After these 2, what other elements does he need to really safeguard, Shaykh?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, we need to mention some of general adilla about what we have mentioned.
So the general, say for example, evidences
and proofs of what we have mentioned. And here I would like just to mention 2 incidents. The first incident is the incident of Fudayk. He is one of the Sahaba who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he accepted Islam. And then he asked the Prophet ﷺ to leave his people and to come to Medina. Then the people of Fudayk, his tribe, they were very nice people, and they said to him, don't worry. You want to establish your religion, we will allow you to establish your religion. We will not interfere into that. So he asked the Prophet ﷺ about that. The Prophet ﷺ allowed him to stay within his tribe. And even actually he said, أَقِبْ فِي قَوْمِكَ يَا فُدَيْكَ, means stay in among your people. Because the first priority is fulfilled, which is establishing Tawheed. The second priority, which is A'budullah ya Fudayk, means we will allow you to worship Allah and we will have no problem with that, is also fulfilled. Of course, within that, other commandments or other levels will be fulfilled. So that can be taken as a premise for what we have said, or as a proof of what we have said, although this is a single proof. What we have mentioned, we have actually mentioned general adilla that support what we have said, but I mentioned this incident because it is very close to our situation.
So this situation you're saying is very close to the situation of Muslims living in the West. As long as they can fulfill these priorities,
yes,
and they are allowed to fulfill the priorities, then they're allowed to stay with this in this environment. So what other priorities are there? Are there other than these 5 pillars?
I need to mention the other incident,
okay,
actually. The other incident, you know, the Sahaba when they migrated to Abyssinia, some of the Sahaba. And the Prophet ﷺ told them that there is a king who is just king, etc. Now, Habiba Ramla bint Abi Sufyan, she was one of the Sahaba who migrated with her husband Ubaydillah ibn Jahsh. She has a very amazing story. I don't know whether we have time to mention that story, but because she said one time, Ubaydillah ibn Jahsh, she saw a dream that her husband is doing something bad, briefly doing something bad. And then she woke up in the morning and her husband told her, listen, I looked into Islam and I looked into Christianity and I found that Christianity is better than Islam. And then he decided to leave Islam and to go into Christianity and to start drinking khamr, etc. And he died as a kafir. Wal-iyadu billah. Of course, she became very upset, etc. Then the Prophet ﷺ married her, and An-Najashi was acting in behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, this, some people might say, this is a very important incident, by the way, because some people might say that this person could not implement Tawheed in his life. Yes, that was an individual case. So we cannot say that, for example, in the West, now some people are leaving the religion. If there are some individual cases where some individual people are leaving their religion, then that does not justify or that does not oblige the other people to leave.
Because they're not allowed to practice.
Because they are allowed.
This is the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes, they are allowed to practice this religion, and those people who left their religion, they have problems.
Yeah.
And we see that some people in Muslim countries, they leave religion as well.
So we can't take these cases to be the norm. And
yes, exactly. And we cannot generalize them.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is similar. This is very similar to the case of this Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh who left Islam. And the Sahaba were not commanded to go back and to meet the torture that they used to face in Mecca. Now, these are 2 incidents that I wanted to mention in light of the discussions that we have. Now, other priorities that the person needs to take care is to abandon the major sins. Of course, the person he is obliged to abandon all sins, but we are talking about priorities.
The priorities that come into order.
Yes. For example, we said the first priority is to establish Tawheed, then to establish the 5 pillars. It doesn't mean that he should not establish other or should not fulfill other commandments. Similarly here, we say that the person should leave shirk and should leave first of all, the major sins. The major sins, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in Hadith Abi Hurairah in الصحيحين that الكبائر 7. الإشراك بالله وقتل النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق وعقوق الوالدين وأكل الربا وقذف المحصنات الغافلات المؤمنات والتولي يوم الزحف. يعني in brief, the major sins include eating riba, slandering the chaste women, also disobedient to parents, and of course the shirk is the first one of them. In the other hadith, Hadith Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting and he warned people against kaba'ir, and he mentioned among the kaba'ir قول الزور وشهادة الزور, to give false testimony,
false statement, yeah,
false statements and testimonies. This is included among the kaba'ir. This hadith again is in a sahih,
including the great sins.
Great sins. Also, among the great sins, الزنا. الزنا إنه كان فاحشة ومقتا وساء سبيلا. إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا, as Allah Jalla wa Ala mentioned in the Quran about الزنا. And also, الزنا specifically to have zina, adultery or fornication with someone's with his neighbor's wife, with his neighbor's wife, as Hadith Ibn Mas'ud says, أن تشرك بالله وهو خلقك وأن تقتل ولدك خشية أن يطعم معك وأن تزاني حليلة جارك. The major sins, to have partners with Allah Jalla wa Ala, and to kill your son because you are fearing faqr, poverty, and to have zina with your wife's with
your neighbor's wife.
So these are the main kaba'ir. These are the main sins. We have to abandon them. And we have to put our situation, we have to put ourselves and our families in a situation where they are not forced into these kaba'ir. For example, in some countries, if the children are exposed to zina and they are sort of forced to have this adultery, then the person needs to take the matter seriously, and if he cannot stop his children from zina and he can abandon and leave that country, then he must do so. Same thing, we know that many Muslim young ladies got married to non-Muslims, and this is totally haram. This is considered to be zina. So if the father or if the parents are unable to stop their children from doing that, then they have to leave that country. Same thing if the person himself is finding himself obliged to deal with riba. Obliged to deal with riba, then the person needs to take serious steps. However, here I would like to mention a very, very important point, and I hope that the time allows us to do so. For example, dealing with riba. You know that in many countries you are put in a situation where you have to deal with riba. And so many people will say, see, you said that we have to leave that country, but is there any country where you can live without dealing with riba, without being sort of obliged to deal with riba? In many Muslim countries, you have to put your money, in order to save your money, you have to put it in a bank which is dealing with riba. Now, it is true that you are not dealing directly with riba, but you are sort of supporting that institution. Same thing in the West, you are doing the same thing. So what I mean is, sometimes you may face a situation in the West which will be the same situation you are going to face in Muslim countries. So don't be And I hope that this point is clear. Don't be under the illusion that, yes, you said that I have to leave that country because I'm facing that situation and I cannot abandon that haram. Maybe once you go to a Muslim country, you will face a similar situation, or sometimes maybe worse.
Okay.
So that is not the criteria. We have to be careful. The criteria is leaving the haram to a situation where you don't do that haram.
Okay, I think maybe next time in the following episode we'll be able to look closely in a bit more detail into this. But we've come to the conclusion that there are priorities for the Muslim. And those priorities after those 5 pillars are keeping away from the major sins. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad from the Muslim Research and Development Foundation in London. I hope you're taking notes, taking information down. Very important topic. Well, until next time, I'll leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.